So welcome back to our closing sections here between now and when we try and finish up at about 2:30. We've now gone to the fourth of the themes. So as you know, we started with participant trends, participant experience, had most recently our workforce and market segment, and now going on to a provider experience. And as you'd appreciate, our whole focus of today has been about trying to make sure that in briefing the industry that there is a provider perspective running through all those theme areas, but this is one that is very, very clearly in the hands of the providers. And so Rhys Kennedy, who you met earlier today, the CEO of CPL, is going to be facilitating this section, and he will introduce each of the colleagues who have joined him on the stage. But this is really going to be a section that talks about, the provider experience and insights pre, during and post-transition. So please welcome Rhys to take this session forward. Please welcome in the normal way.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Welcome back from lunch. Good lunch? Yeah, nothing beats a free lunch, right? Hands up if you didn't come back from lunch. No one. Good. Excellent. Glad that we've kept everyone engaged. I personally ran down to try and get a coffee and didn't make it in time, so I'm just recovering from my little run across the entertainment centre without a coffee, as it turns out. So this afternoon we really wanted to take that opportunity. We've gone through a lot of data. We've heard from people doing their analytics around that. We've heard from the departments, which is all very good and interesting. But this afternoon it's really about what does that mean in real terms? What has the experience been to date and so far? And we've asked some really wise and very experienced leaders in our sector to come and share their experience of how they've gone transitioning to the NDIS. And so this really is an opportunity for them to reflect on their experience with you and for you to share some of that. If there are things that maybe they would have done differently, and then if they'd had the advantage that we've all received today of data from the first year, if that would have changed how they approached their transition as well. So let me introduce our wonderful panel for this afternoon. Right on the very end, we have Peter Mewat. Peter is the Chief Executive Officer of one of the largest disability organisations in North Queensland, Kutharinga. Kutharinga offers a diverse range of services and was one of the first organisations delivering services at the onset of the NDIS rollout in Queensland in Townsville. Peter has contributed significantly to the disability industry over many years in a variety of roles, and today will share his wealth of experience in NDIS transition. Next to Peter, we have Judy, and Judy heads up Alara, Queensland, a well-established organisation providing services in the Ipswich, Somerset and Lockyer districts to a diverse client group. Judy has broad experience in service delivery spanning 30 years with recent experience in the NDIS rollout. Sorry, Judy, I shouldn't have said that. That's what they wrote down here. And Judy has been an NDIS State Committee member for 9 years and represents Queensland members on the National Policy Committee for Workforce. Next to Judy, we have Brett. Brett Adams is the Manager of Partnerships and Performance at Community Solutions. Brett specialises in leadership engagement and workforce solutions by focusing on contemporary workforce strategies for the health and human services sector. Wow. That's a mouthful. Brett leads partnerships with organisations looking for innovative, multifaceted and unique contingent workforce models within a focus on a new world of NDIS workforce change. And then finally, next to Brett, we have Jodie Collins. And Jodie is the General Manager of Disability Support at Yellowbridge, who are located in Toowoomba. Yellowbridge is a medium-sized organisation servicing the southwest region around housing, disability, home and youth services. Jodie has given her time freely to share with colleagues at Redlands and Rockhampton on transition learnings within the southwest community. Please join me in welcoming our panellists to the stage. Right. Starting to get my breath back now. So we thought this is more of an informal conversation, and so to give some flow to the conversation, we thought we would talk about our experiences pre-transition, during transition, and now what our current state is, so where our providers are in the middle space. To help our panellists describe their experience, could we just do a quick show of hands from our providers? Who is currently in pre-transition in their organisations? Great. Who's currently in transition at the moment, transitioning their business? Excellent. And who's all the way through? They're done, dusted, everything's looking great. Fabulous. Does that help? So we thought we would sort of follow that journey of transition as we talk with our panellists to guide our conversation, but generally it's pretty free-flowing. Perhaps what we might do though is we'll start off maybe with you, Jody, and then work along. If we can just give the audience a quick idea around your organisation, the services you deliver, your workforce size, client numbers.
Great. Hello. So I'm the General Manager for the Disability Support Team for Yellowbridge Queensland in Toowoomba. We're currently just completed our transition. We're 99% transitioned into NDIS. We have one client still to transition that is taking longer just due to some chronic ill health. Our Disability Support Team, we're currently delivering services to 93 clients in the Toowoomba area. I have 72 support staff that work with me, and 9 team in my leadership of the Disability Support Team. Yellowbridge Queensland not only delivers disability support, we also deliver housing, Department of Housing program, an aged care program, and a small youth service as well. So disability support is a part of our overall business.
G'day, Brett Adams here, Manager of Partnerships and Performance from Community Solutions. I don't necessarily have the privilege of working day to day in direct service delivery capability roles, but Community Solutions as an organisation certainly looks to go down that path. We're in the early stages. We have gone all the way to the end in Victoria of that journey with some particular customers, which has given us some great insight. But we also see ourselves as key providers to the industry, partners to the industry, as far as if there's other providers that aren't necessarily being able to offer those full supports, is that something Community Solutions can partner with other providers with and support them? My role particularly focuses on the workforce areas, so you can imagine I'm pretty busy in that regard. But we look at providing workforce support in disability, mental health, aged care and other general community services through our predominant service, which is Workforce Solutions. Thanks.
As you said, my name is Judy Dixon. I'm the Executive Manager of Elara Queensland Limited. Hello? Yeah. Okay, so I'm the Executive Manager of Elara Queensland Limited. Elara is a community-based organisation that operates in Ipswich, Lockyer and Somerset, and we do a little bit in the Greater Scenic Rim and those parts of Brisbane that used to be Ipswich. We historically provided quite a diverse range of disability services. We're a community care provider. We do some children's services and we do some boutique aged services. So the cohort of people moving to the NDIS is potentially a fairly large proportion of the people we support, but not all of the people that we support. We employ, I think it's about 160 or 170 people who are predominantly direct support workers, because we have a very flat structure and we're a medium-sized organisation. Okay.
Thanks. Peter?
Hello. Hi, I'm Peter Good. I'm CEO of Cooter Indian in Northern Queensland. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians, past, present and future, on the land on which we gather today. Cooter Indian North Queensland is 66 years old, or 66 years young, whichever way you choose to look at it. We operate from St Lawrence, below Mackay, to the Cape and then over to the Northern Territory border. As we have a turnover this coming year of about $23 million, we support around 600 to 700 people right across North Queensland, and we employ about 400 people. 75% of our customer base, our operations and our revenue is now operating under the NDIS. We currently have, as of last Thursday, 491 NDIS customers, which is one of the largest cohorts in Australia at the moment. That's going to be well and truly overtaken by others in the future, but just at this time. We operate a very broad range of services, from all of the capability development types of services through course supports to equipment, and we established an account management model a couple of years ago, so we do supports coordination and a range of other things. I'll talk about some of the things we've drawn from. That's probably a good
Great.
of where we are. So we're only not operating in Cairns and Castleford.
Okay, great. I am on, great. So actually, Peter, we might circle back to you, given that you are in North Queensland, and so we're one of the first areas to transition or transition early. And so you were leading Kootheringa, getting the organisation ready for NDIS transition. What was sort of some of the things that you were focused on and that you were thinking about at the time when you were transitioning your business that were important to you? And did the earlier rollout then change that for you?
That's the last question, definitely. Kootheringa have been preparing for around 3 years. That won't be any story that's unfamiliar to people in this room. When I joined 2.5 years ago, we really ramped that up. Really looked at a whole range of evolving service models, evolving practices and approaches to customer engagement. And and we made a significant commitment. The organisation had retained earnings, so it had a cash buffer. The board and the executive made commitments about that we needed to make investments in a whole range of areas, one of which is ICT, and we'll talk about that later. That comes to fruition soon. But one of the areas we did do is we introduced life goal planning at our cost for every single customer that we provided support for. We offered it as a standard. We made very clear that it wasn't about NDIS planning, it wasn't the same thing, that we actually looked at assisting people to understand, to take a different approach. Instead of a deficit-based approach to service delivery and thinking about themselves, it was about how do I achieve life goals, what's my aspirations in life, how do I go about thinking that way? Because it is a very large change in thinking. It was also to assist people to move from passive recipient of service to actively engage customer. And we seem to have some success there. Certainly the feedback that has come back from customers is that when we compare people who didn't go through that process to people who did, there is a definite improvement in what people achieve through their NDIS plan. As far as the early rollout, it has massively affected us because we weren't as ready as we would have liked. I don't think we ever are, but the 4-month essential time period we had to construct, we went from 80 to 480 in a matter of 4 months, created a chaos that no planning in the world could ever account for, and resulted in some fairly heavy financial impacts.
Yep. But you don't look tired at all, Peter, from that experience, so that's good. And so that aligns that aligns really nicely with the stuff Paige was saying around participants' experience too, in terms of being well prepared. Jody, what about you? You were next in terms of the rollout schedule in Toowoomba. The pre-planning work with participants and other areas that you were focused on?
Yeah, we really did focus our time on supporting our clients. We really did think it's interesting that it's already been said that we thought we did enough to support our clients to prepare and obviously also prepare ourselves and our workforce and our community. But still, in reflecting back, we could have actually even done a lot more time with our clients, with supporting them to prepare and get ready. Obviously, for us as service providers and working in the sector, it's a huge, big learning curve for us. But for clients with a disability, that's, tenfold the amount of time that it needs for them to totally understand the process. So we really did focus on our clients and supporting them through that process. And again, in-kind support, really, not being paid as a service provider to deliver that support to them. And that's why I brought some portraits up the other end of the room today, because that was one part of our readiness program, was making sure that our community was very aware of this big thing called NDIS that was coming, because without the support of our community, where the participants were going to be spending their money, we would be left high and dry. So it was really important that we focused not only on our clients and our staff and ourselves and obtaining information and knowledge, but making sure our community was also aware. So we did some portraits that we thought all of our clients have a story to tell, and our community needed to hear that story and to hear the goals and aspirations that they themselves had for NDIS. So they say the old saying that a picture tells 1,000 words, and we think these portraits certainly did that in helping our community embrace and understand what we were going through, and more importantly, what our clients were going through.
They're brilliant too. Brett,
Yeah.
some experience?
Yeah, look, prior to transition, Community Solutions had recently amalgamated with some local disability providers throughout regional Queensland. It gave us some pretty quick insight through that process, let alone the looming NDIS transition, that we had a lot to learn, we had a lot to do. It then gave the opportunity of, well, if we're willing to have other organisations amalgamate with us, could we amalgamate with another provider ourselves as well? So for those who aren't aware, Community Solutions is part of a larger group of Endeavour Foundation. Community Solutions currently provides about $45 to $60 million just in government-funded employment services. So that created a nice enabling partnership for us, Endeavour Foundation, and some other associated partnerships to really make sure that we were tackling the transition head-on.
And so was that amalgamation money-based or a bit of that, and then also getting the best outcome for participants?
Yeah, look, in regards to money, if you're talking about corporate overheads, if you're talking about sophisticated systems, if you're talking about leading customer engagement, yes, that added a lot of value throughout that amalgamation process. But it's a two-way street, and to be able to partner and leverage off enabling government-funded services that we're already out there doing with each other, it just made perfect sense. Yep.
Beauty. Judy, you're the most recent to transition in, and so your focus area is obviously on customer, but also workforce, and how much change did you anticipate that you were leading and guiding?
Well, we started working on this quite a while ago. So the transition started at the end of May. It was brought forward, and we're now in September. So we've had 200 people transfer through in that time. So it's been, I think we had a lull in the first week because no one knew they had a plan. But then it's been a little bit like a tsunami. The areas that we focused on over a number of years, so I think it took us a while to get to the right place. Obviously, client and community, and our journey was similar, although had we realised we probably would have gone back and done some more work around First Plan, because some of the people started working on preparing for their transition 3 years ago, modelling on what was happening in other states, so it didn't translate 100%. Workforce, we did a lot of work with our workforce so that they understood what was happening. We made some changes to our enterprise agreement in preparation for the rollout of the NDIS. We moved towards having a more flexible workforce, and I have to say, organisationally, we believe our staff are our key asset. So we weren't shedding any of the staff based on price. We were looking at what they could contribute. We paid a lot of attention to finance, ensuring we had cash reserves, understanding our unit costing, understanding what was break-even points for the organisation and for parts of the organisation. And the last key area was around that organisational innovation and the technology we needed to operate under the NDIS. So we had the technology, we had the systems, but it was a matter of making sure they were, ready to roll on day one.
Excellent. And for those providers in the room who are in transition, you've either reassured a lot of them or you've completely freaked everyone out in terms of how much work they have to do. We'll leave that up for people to determine themselves. Let's talk about when, drop dead date hit and we were now in transition and people had their plans. And Judy, we'll stick with you. Did the phone run off the hook, people beating down your doors, you had to find more people to respond to the increased demand? Or was it more like the graph was showing where, things are a little slower to start with? Same clients or new clients?
It's a bit of both. As I said, in the first few weeks, very little was happening. I think but by the way, we were already supporting people before the transition, so we'd been registered for quite a while, and then people had moved to the area, so we were supporting a small cohort, so we had a little bit of practice. After the couple of week lull, as we helped people work out whether they had plans or not, things steadily increased until it became a tsunami. And I suppose, you really do have to think about, in the meantime, business as usual needs to happen. So it's a bit like, how do you respond to that in a very timely way, and not say to people, oh, we'll get back to you in a few weeks' time, but keep your business going. Yep. Yeah.
And Peter, if we jump over to you, because I know you've got a few things to comment on around transition, but do we have, you have to remind me, sorry, I've forgotten, do we have LACs in place in Townsville for transition?
The LAC, there's an outsourced LAC organisation, Ferriscare, operating now in Mackay and Townsville, and MBIA LACs operating in Mount Isa, that they upload recent effects. I mean, that's one of the issues of having gone first. We got first plan halfway through the bid process. So there was a stage where we were bringing on 50 to 60 people a week, because the reality is that your existing customers are new NDIS customers. So the notion of there's a huge difference between existing and new customers at the point of taking on with service agreements and everything else being set up, there's actually not that much greater distinction, except your people who've been with you previously. We had about 40% growth in numbers, only 20% growth in revenue. So a lot more small packages come forward. When it moved to first plan, basically a lot of the work that we'd done, and we invested $250,000 in developing assisting 600 people develop lifestyle planning. For 300 of those people, it was a process that still very much helped them in first plan, but we had people who had tell, they rang me last night, we had a good chat, their plan turned something proposed. They didn't even realise they had a plan in conversation. We still find those things happening today, particularly with plan reviews. Nice man from the NDI. Last night had a good chat with him, and then suddenly we try to claim all the service bookings are suspended because there's been a plan review that even the customer doesn't know about, and we can't claim anymore until we can actually find it. So those sorts of things, actually the positive to that, the NDIA, I believe, is truly a learning organisation. That's why the goal has changed regularly. Because what they're trying to do, every change they make is an improvement. So it's not, they're never going backwards, but it happens regularly, and that's just part of the uncertain environment. Get used to uncertainty, because that's the environment we operate in.
And so then, Jody, January, you transitioned. Phones ringing off the hook, doors beating down, or silence? What happened for you?
Please listen carefully when we say how busy it is, because I know that I went to a number of sessions and heard a lot of other providers talk, and they warned that it will be the busiest time of your working career. I did hear that, but I didn't think how that would play out within our workforce, and it quite literally was the busiest time of my working career the last 6 months, and I'm still standing, I'm still smiling, I'm still able to talk. I don't know how. I don't know how you were doing 50 because, we were just transitioning our existing clients. But I did a bit of an equation for you, and this is just our experience with the pre-planning through to implementation of plan to help you try and understand workforce changes and how much time it does take. So this is for a one-on-one client to help them transition through. So if you allow at least 2 hours pre-planning for that individual client and their family, sitting down, having a meeting and talking about planning goals, looking at their schedule and so forth, Then add another 2 hours for the phone planning conversation. If you're lucky, it wasn't a phone call at night that no one knew about. And then allow for 2 hours implementation of the plan, just discussing what they got in their plan, what does that mean for them, and so forth. And in Toowoomba, we had no LACs up and running for the first 3 months, so that role and responsibility really fell to the support organisations. Then you allow 4 hours of support planning, program design, sitting down looking at what that support plan for that individual will look like, and obviously implementing rosters. And 2 hours for budget calculations, entering on the portal, and doing the purchase requests as well. So that's approximately 12 hours per client.
Which you claim $0 for. Yeah.
So then time-wise, if you look, that's 70 clients, which is 840 hours work per week, which is 25 weeks in a year, which is just under 6 months. And that's only doing NDIS plans. That's not doing any other operational time, any other recruitment or so forth. And that's just for one person. And that's only allowing 1 hour a day, 1 hour lunch and a half-hour break. So just for 70 clients. So if you've got more clients than that in your organisation, you really need to consider that in your workforce planning, in your pre-implementation of how you can have that time available. And yeah, the phones didn't stop ringing. We had sometimes 4 and 5 phone calls of new inquiries per day as we were trying to help existing clients transition through. So get ready. It's busy.
Continuing to freak the audience out. So that's good. That's not really what we want. That's really great insight. So we're still talking about being in transition. And so initially we were saying a lot of the focus was on being able to support our existing customers or clients to understand how to transition easily. Now that we're in transition, we're still needing to really invest in those deep conversations and support with our existing customers on everything that you just said. What were the other focus areas for us? What about claiming, getting paid for the work that you're doing and getting your head around quoting and billing? And is that a focus area or not so much? Peter?
It's an area of huge focus. Please don't underestimate it. If I can get, and I spoke at Southwest around about a year ago and said, this is not business as usual. I can't emphasise what an understatement that was. As far as claiming is concerned, if there's one thing we could go back and do differently, it's the term data is king. Get your data correct now before you transition as early as you possibly can. I'll put it into context. We used to do around about 300 billable or invoiceable transaction a month. We had estimated we'd have a 300 to 400% increase. We've had over 1,000% increase. We've moved from 300 to 3,500 to 4,000 transactions per month. So the number of claim transactions are enormous because you have to do a separate claim for each individual incident of service. And if you have 3 different item numbers being provided on the one day, then it's 3 separate claims. And if you don't have all your ducks in a row, if not every single number in that sequence is correct, your claim will go into error, and there's no advice coming back telling you what the error is. So if you have hundreds of errors potentially each week, you have to have big. So we're actually, overheads are supposed to decrease. At the moment, until we get our system support going, our overheads increase dramatically. We have a claims team that didn't exist before because we have to.
Yeah. No one else wants to comment?
We found, particularly with the budget calculations, that we weren't aware leading in. We designed our calculation tool, and we weren't aware until it came to doing our first online service booking. So we'd done a number of plan and a number of support budgets with our individual clients, that every single service and line item of service needs to be entered in to do your service booking. So if it's a day rate, if it's an evening rate, if it's a weekend rate, if it's a Saturday, every single hour of support across every single line item needs to be recorded in a service booking. It's not bulked in all your core support together and do a service booking or all your capacity building. It's every specific individual line item. So we actually then had to go back and redo those support calculations because we weren't aware until we went to do our first service booking that's how much breakdown that you needed in those service calculations.
Yeah, sale of calculators are through the roof here in Queensland. Judy, did you want to say something about?
Yeah, you do need to think about how this is all going to work within your organisation. I mean, we all of our coordinators and facilitators are now quite experienced at quoting. They have a quoting tool. If we've talked about would we have done something better, we probably would, if we'd have known that it was going to come forward 2 months, we probably would have brought back our schedule to do more training on that, but that wasn't to be. So we were when the phone wasn't ringing in the first week, we were very busy anyway. And we centralised who actually though does the bookings, because that, as you say, there's quite an art and skill to that, and you do need to make sure that it's right. And we have centralised who actually is translating existing rosters over to the NDIA coding to give coordinators some assistance and to make sure that there's continuity of service for people. As you said, data integrity is absolutely key, and I believe our error rate's now only at 6%, but in talking to people from NDIA Finance, there are organisations who have a very high error rate, and that must be costing them a lot of time and money, because it is so hard to find what the error is once you get an error message, and then it's really hard to get it fixed.
Yeah, and well, even though I'm facilitating, we are a service organisation as well.
Yeah.
It changes for us. So sometimes we think we're nailing it one week with very little errors, and the next week almost the identical claims, and they come back. And we can spend anywhere on average between 20 minutes to 3 hours on every error that we're trying to
One of the problems,
fix.
of course, is that if people have gone into review, and they may not know they've gone into review, if they've gone into review as the plan becomes suspended and you can't claim, but you get an error message back, and you have to then work out what the error message actually, what's gone wrong.
Yeah. And so while we're in transition, so let's talk about workforce too while we're there. There's been some talk around there's a lot of fear and uncertainty from the workforce and people who are working in the sector when it comes to the transition to the NDIS. Will there be a job? Won't there be a job? Are organisations going to start, culling numbers because, I don't know, they don't have the clients anymore? Or what have you done around leading that confidence in the workforce and building their skill and being customer and client-centric around that? Brett, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, just based on those previous comments, I think a key measurable is your wage to revenue ratios. So certainly monitoring that as the fluctuations start to commence. We've seen a lot of providers come to us and actually not even necessarily understand their own workforce composition. They don't understand that their permanent part-times, whilst these claiming issues could be going on, are actually still costing them money, and those ratios are a little bit out of whack. So certainly keep an eye on that. I guess what we're also seeing is HR's involvement throughout this experience. There's a lot of change, and we're seeing practices over recent years where permanent part-time contracts are still being issued, but they're being issued with minimal hours. So it's more of a bit of an industrial strategy, which makes sense. But is it what people are actually looking for in work when they're sort of promised, we've got 30 to 40 hours for you here, we've got plenty of hours, but then they get a permanent contract that's got maybe 5 to 10 per week or per fortnight. And we've got to be considerate that they're the people who are going to be taking care of these customers through these pain points. So it's a difficult time to manage.
Yeah. Gee, I felt like you had something to say about leadership. No, you didn't? Leadership and workforce, no?
Well, I think it becomes very hard because there's a lot of sort of Chinese whispers in the sector that aren't helpful. So, you know, in your own organisation, you do have to spend a lot of time reassuring people that, in fact, you know, if you're in a good organisation, there's probably going to be a lot more work rather than a lot less work. And as I said before, your staff, your good staff, they're more valuable than anything. So, you know, look, unfortunately, we've seen in some other organisations whole levels of staff being made redundant. Presumably, that was around some internal modelling of costing. Our focus, though, was more to work with people within our organisation about, I suppose, what they were really good at, so what they potentially could contribute under the NDIS, and also about their flexibility and what we all needed to do in the organisation to make it a success.
You want to say something about workforce?
With that explosion of staff numbers, still focusing on billable time, the area we've cut back is Management Street. Has been significantly reduced. And the big issue is, as it always is with every organisation, is cultural change, and that takes a very long time. So even if your organisation you believe is, and Cooter Wingert was certainly on track, certainly very customer focused, it wasn't anywhere near where it needed to be. So I know one of the things I spoke about in South West is this sector, for some reason, and I've been in it for 30 years, longest duty it's been in it, there seemed to be in a lot of organisation that customer choice meant that support workers could choose which customers they wish to work with, which is not really what happens in the retail services sector. And let's face it, we're now in the retail services sector. So that was so even the very best of workers, that was very confronting. And so we decided we had to do that well ahead of the transition and really, really challenge what was accepted as a culture in the organisation, say simply not acceptable now. Today is the drill line in the sand we have to cross over. You've got to do that a long time before you start bringing on lots of people, because they are the very people who your success in your organisation depends on.
Perfect. And then I think while we're on that topic, so the relationship with customer, or the relationship with client or consumer, interchangeable term for today's purposes, the work that we've done collectively as a sector to support our existing consumers to transition as seamlessly as possible into the new scheme. So that was a certain type of relationship that we had, and since then we've heard all these sorts of blog posts and consultants and everyone out there telling us it's a competitive environment now, the market's expanding, digital disruption, every other buzzword that you can think of about reform and what that means. But what does it actually mean now when you are in the NDIS? Does the relationship with your client and your customer change from what it had been? And what's different? Judy?
Well, I think there's a lot of excitement in the organisation. People's lives are no longer constrained by service types and by, I know people have got a plan and it's what's in people's plan, but what people were getting from the organisation was not necessarily, for example, what they wanted or what we wanted to provide. It depends on what capacity they'd been referred to or what program that they'd been referred to. We're now having, I suppose, the joy of working with people with, their plan around what they really need and what they what sort of support they want from the organisation to do things that are meaningful to them. So we're doing lots of exciting and interesting things with people that we couldn't have previously done before. So that's absolutely the upside of what's happening.
Great. I couldn't imagine even thinking about going to the system that operated previously. So regardless of all the challenges, and there are, this is the NDIS, the opportunity it offers for customers is without doubt something much better than we could have hoped for. Some of the concerns, that was coming out of some of the figures that came up previously. I mean, the real opportunity for people is to develop their capability. I'm very concerned when I see core supports making up 70% of what's in plans. we're actually experiencing it as well. That just to focus, we are so dependent, the real flaw in the system is you're dependent on the consistency and the skills and capability of planners. And I've got to say, in North Queensland, there is no consistency. We have some brilliant planners, we have some god-awful planners. We have a number of planners who just do not understand that it's an actuarial insurance system and basically about front-loading and capability to receive to get long-term gain as far as outcomes and as far as cost. I'm sorry to say, a number of ex-contract managers from the stage do actually look at trying to manage the NDIS as if they're contracting a state government funding program, and it simply doesn't work for participants. As a result, we're seeing second-year plans, because we have second-year plans, and we're seeing alarming rates of reductions in plans, either through non-utilisation or it's now parental responsibility, we're not funding that anymore.
So, thanks, Peter. Yeah, that's good insight. I just don't know where to take it. I'm sorry. Without getting controversial, Jody, your relationship at Yellowbridge with customers, did it change when people, came onto the NDIS?
I don't think it changed. If anything, the relationship was really strengthened. To be in the conversations with the individuals, to be there supporting them through the whole process, it only strengthened that relationship. And really it has been an absolute privilege to support our clients through that process and to see and start to see some real life-changing things that are taking effect on day-to-day lives. It has been a real privilege to be part of that. And yeah, I think it really has strengthened that relationship. We've always been a client-centred organisation at Yellowbridge and always pride ourselves on that. But yeah, it has taken it to a real new level, I believe, with the whole process.
Yeah, great. Agreed. So I'm looking at the time. We could talk all afternoon. So I'm going to condense some of I did provide a conversation guide to our panellists who asked me if we were talking for 6 hours. So I am going to try and condense some things so we can get through it. And what I might do is at CPL we have a bit of a conversation game we play with our senior leadership team and exec where we call We Rate It and Hate It. And so that's regularly when we get together we go around the room and we rate the things that we think we're nailing and we're doing really well and that we've succeeded at, and then all the stuff that we hate, the stuff that we're doing really bad and we need to focus on and improve and keep doing better. And it's really just an approach for us to make sure that we're always focused on those priorities that are important to us and we don't just get caught with our own, I'm trying to think of an appropriate way to say this, with, fluffing our own nest, focusing on the priorities. So I wonder if we could go around and talk, if everyone can have a turn at Rate It and Hate It, the things that you think you either did well or needed to improve on, or that right now that you're doing well and that you still think we need to improve on. Jodie.
With rating it, one of our values is that we're better together. So we were focused that we were always part of the solution, whether that be supporting our clients through the transition, having the conversations with NDIA that a plan wasn't right, that was received, how can we work through this together? That was really something that I think really helped us with a really positive transition. We formed really positive relationships with the local office, the NDIA and now LAC, so I think that really helped. Do you want me to do a hate it as well?
Yeah, go and do a hate it.
I don't like the word hate it, so let's say frustrations.
Great.
Was the inconsistency in plans. It became really frustrating early on that you'd have two individuals that would go into a planning conversation with similar levels of support need, and one would come out with a $20,000 plan and one would come out with a $100,000 plan. It was really, really frustrating because we couldn't understand why that was. We were part of the conversations the whole way through. Luckily, because we're better together, we did work on solutions for that, but it was very frustrating and very time-consuming for an organisation then to have to go back through and more or less do another planning process to try and get that right. Luckily, and the positive in that is that we had success with all of them, that we went back to get a review because they weren't right. So I hate it became a
nice.
Rate it.
But then became a rate it, yeah. We just say hate it because it rhymes with rate and hate. That's all. Brett? rate it and frustrated with it?
Yeah, look, I rate the opportunity that it's providing workforce throughout Queensland and Australia. I think there is still significant untapped opportunity for workforce for people with a disability, providing a peer support model to what we're doing. So I think we're going to see significant increase in I just call it the peer support model, but people generally being able to exercise supports to other people, and the classic is people who get me at providing support to each other, and that's just going to be great when that starts to come, more, I guess, the norm of how we go about doing things rather than a requirement or something that we might do as token. I guess what I don't like as much is there's so many opportunities for alliances to form with what's going on. And I have seen some organisations exercise a non-compete into their employment contracts, so their support workers can't work anywhere else. I also see other employers exercising the minimum permanent hours to their employees. Those employees are having to go work with another organisation to get the hours that they want. They're paying higher tax on the second job. Sometimes they're doing it on the sly. It doesn't necessarily need to be like that, and we can certainly be open to the workforce. And if we can't solve that particular problem, some of these Uber-like models will just build in I guess, opportunity themselves, because they are providing people with the flexibility that they want, and we've got to be careful somewhat of that.
Yeah. And super, right, as well. That's the concern then. Judy?
I think I've talked about what I really love. I think some of the things that organisationally that we found really draining, a little bit like the inconsistencies that were being talked about, are some of the things that do come through planning meetings. So Alara has had a history of working with a number of families so that they could get to the point of self-managing. So through Your Life, Your Choice, they were already employing their own staff. So what happens, their first plan comes through and they're NDIA managed. So they've got staff they can't pay, families not being fed, all sorts of bills, debt collectors. So that there was a fair bit of that happen. I think we're out the other side of that at the moment. Supports for children seem to be a real issue. We're seeing children having a real reduction in the core level of support, and comments being made to families, well, that's a parent's responsibility, when clearly what's required is well outside what any other family member, any other parent would be expected to do, particularly for kids with really high support needs. Those sorts of things create a lot of angst and a lot of anger and a lot of sadness for people, and often we're the first people that they ring. Walking alongside people and sort of trying to get that rectified, there has taken a lot of time and then a lot of investment on behalf of the organisation.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we then can rate it, yes. Right? Yeah.
And just following on from Judy's point, is providers do cop a lot of the collateral damage from that at times, simply because we are walking alongside. Rated, hated, I'll go from an internal perspective.
Okay.
What we did early on is identify 5 key strategic shifts in the organisation, and we didn't communicate that just with inside the organisation, with inside to all our customers, but then out to all our supporters, the community, and ask people to hold us accountable on that. And those key strategic shifts were to go from person-centred, which is a passive recipient of support, to person-directed, so actively engaged customer, to move from a funded service model to a retail service model, to move from a charitable not-for-profit status and view to a purpose business, still not-for-profit technically, but purpose business, to move importantly from support plans which which are determined by a third person, generally never involving the customer themselves, due about light goals. So absolutely about light goals, when I mentioned the light, they're moving from a menu of service approaches to one product, which is tailored support. I'd add data as king number one. That really worked, because it's a conversation we're still having 2 years later. We check how we got there. You'll never get there, nor should you. But the fact that we involved everyone, we involved not just those connected to the organisation, but North Queensland communities and a view of us, has worked really well. Are we getting it all right? Absolutely not. So what do I hate? I hate when I've got to sit there and go, what do you think? When we have a customer response, quite likely to something stupid we've done, and just go, how can you possibly have thought that was okay to work with a customer in that respect? Now, the reality is, if you're only getting 95% customer satisfaction, the other 5% are on Facebook absolutely tearing the business apart. And that is the reality, and that's how it should be. One I hate from the outside, and I'll just to follow on Judy's point, I hate the fact that, and when, as a member of the Ability First Australia network across Australia, we've identified this very strongly. The pricing mechanisms and the planning mechanisms do not take account of complexity very well. Complexity seems to be confined to where you need to have support to assist in regard to behavioural responses. It's not about where you've got multiple underlying conditions where you have the complexities of being verbal or not verbal, that there's an interplay between all the factors in someone's life that actually makes support complex. And there's both the pricing mechanism but also the planning mechanism are not well set up, and I see no light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely. So that is a real concern, because the possibility is that no one will end up in that space. Because at the moment, if we have to say what was the least margin delivery, and our margin, by the way, last year was minus 9.5%, so you can do the sums later on what that means for our organisation. If you are going to continually make a negative margin on that type of work, eventually, as a company, you're going to have to step out. That's my point.
Wow, now everyone's completely panicked, I'm sure. So let's not, that's great. Thank you, Peter, for being so generous and sharing that with us. Seriously. The one thing I wanted to sort of maybe wrap up on is a surprising success. So we've talked about some of the things that frustrate us and that are difficult and some of our experience, but what's been a surprising success that you just sort of maybe floored you a little bit, either with your workforce or with the people that you work with or support, or from your business or your greater community as a result of NDIS?
For me, it's not one big major success. It's all the little ones that add up that are really quite amazing. We did a photo book as part of our photographic exhibition last year, and the next thing that I'd really love to see is a book titled something similar to My First Time with NDIS, because the amount of things that people are experiencing their first time now that they've been funded appropriately is really quite amazing. So I think for us, that's the amazing stuff with that. The other small little things is people wanted to sit and wait on our waiting list, that they wanted to have a service with Yellow Bridge, and we think that was testament to all the hard work that we had put in. But again, it ended up becoming something that we hated, that we couldn't support everyone. But yeah, really it's the little changes that it's making in everyday lives for all of our clients that is a huge success that is really lovely to see.
Cool. Brett?
Yeah, look, there's some good ones already said, but I really use the work that the workability team had done with NDS. That information is so powerful in Queensland. If you can understand what the current market share of a workforce is in the area that you operate and what the future market share of the workforce is going to be, you can pretty much do the math yourself and know what's happening with your workforce. And just to give that a little bit more detail, if you have 100 people working, let's say in the South Brisbane, Logan area, there's 1,000 people currently doing support work there. If that's going to triple based on the expected numbers, your market share of your current workforce in the industry is going to drop down by 7%. Now, your workforce, needs to maintain that market share. So how are you going to do it? And I think those statistics are really valuable for all of us as far as how can we ensure that there's continuity of service by maintaining our market share of our existing workforce whilst the workforce is significantly growing, whilst reducing costs.
Awesome. The answer is, well, that's the last one, share your piece of wisdom, so maybe you've got the answer in there. Judy, surprising success?
Well, I think that every day I'm surprised by something. Every day something will tell me, somebody in the organisation will tell me that we're now doing this or someone's now doing that, and they were things that you would never have imagined. And I mean, it makes you understand, why you wanted to work in the sector in the first place.
Yeah, right. I find I cry a lot in this job. Yeah.
What Judy just said, because that's exactly it. Joy. And for all of us being sad sacks here a little bit, the reality is the benefits so much outweigh the challenges and the opportunities. And like Judy, every day I hear something. I hear an achievement or an opportunity taken, or customers, sort of pulling up outside a customer's house, and I can hear, Peter's arrived out the front. Now, it seems small, but it's really huge. We've got 600 customers, and they know you by sight and those sort of things because of everything you've been doing as best. The other thing, though, is it's really small and it will get bigger, is co-design, co-production and innovation. We're disrupting our organisation from the inside. Over this next 2 years, that will actually become the norm in our organisation, but it's hard to see from the outside. That will be probably easier to see in the next couple of years. That just fills me with joy every day I come to work. Not because I'm a change junkie, but because we are absolutely engaging with our customers to deliver something different. And it doesn't matter the scale. It could be something really small or something really large. It's just as valid. And it changes the way we think about what we do and who we are.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it really is a great thing, and we're all doing great stuff, and we're all here for the right reasons, so that's great. That's probably all we have time for this afternoon. Was there, I'll give one or some of you an opportunity if there was one final piece of wisdom you wanted to share before we wrap up? No? Thanks.
Okay, and have a look at your business continuity plan and do a little bit of modelling about what would happen in your organisation if the NDIS rolls out 2 months earlier than planned.
Don't take leave. Please thank my panellists.